what's going on, everyone? It's Chris, and welcome back to once again another episode of the Big Brother Podcast with my good friend, Gocubs of 11.
So one time I went to Cleveland and bought 5 pounds of grapes.
I think you told me that before. I forget why though. Like you were there and you're like,
I was there and it cost $5.
and you're like, whatever, let's do it. Let's get grapes.
They were good. They were good grapes.
I love grapes. Welcome back, everyone. So what a week it was. At first, it kind of started out boring, and then it really picked up, and it was quite a surprise near the end. So let's get right into it. So last where we left off, Bridget was the winner of the head of household.
Indeed, she was.
And she had the power to have all the nominations her way this week, but instead she chose to do it Frank's way. So Frank told her that the best option is to nominate Tiffany and Paul, even though that she kind of wanted to nominate Corey and Nicole, or Corey and Tiffany. But he kind of swayed her away from that, and he was like, yeah, no, you do what I say, and you nominate Tiffany and Paul. That's the best way you do it. And so she does. She nominates Tiffany and Paul, and now Tiffany is kind of freaking out because she knows that Frank's in control for the week.
Yeah.
She just has that she has to win Roadkill, or she has to win the veto, just get her butt off the block. So they get to the actual Roadkill competition, and I forget what it was. I think it was the horn one.
It was the horns, yeah.
Would you like to explain exactly what they had to do?
So they got some time to practice. There were a bunch of different car horns, and they got to practice pressing each one to figure out how it sounded. Okay. And then they had to press another button, and it would give them a sequence of 8 horns, and whoever did the sequence correctly, the fastest, won.
Yeah, and it was interesting to see it. It kind of got annoying with all the horn sounds, but Frank ended up getting his second Roadkill win. Yep. So Frank wins, and basically Frank has all the power this week because he's just able to control Bridget for some reason. And so he decides that the best way to do this is to move forward with the Roadkill is to put up someone that would easily that could beat Tiffany in a veto, and could be a good backup plan, let's say, if Tiffany wins the veto. And so he decides to put up good old Bronte. So Bronte, Paul, and Tiffany are your 3 nominees. So now they get into the veto, the veto segment of the show. And I forget a lot of like the little things that they had scattered around this week. I just know the basic facts of what exact events were happening. Like
there was a big social thing that happened that I think you should talk about.
I actually completely forget.
Frank and Day.
I'm sorry. Completely forgot about that. I had to refresh myself before this. So there was something that big that happened, and it actually happened during Sunday's episode. So Frank has had a history with just kind of being kind of misogynistic, kind of with the ladies, and he's made comments about the way that the ladies have looked, and he would kind of insult people, I think in a way that he wasn't actually trying to, or he was just kind of joking around, but they were kind of rude.
Yeah.
But there was a tipping point this week when Frank decided to slap the ass of Devon. And Devon was not happy about that. She went into the have-not room and she started crying. Corey and Polly were comforting her. And Frank didn't realize that it was going to make her upset, but Devon didn't want anything of it. Essentially, it was at that point that people were really like, yeah, we want Frank out of this game. We want him out of this game. We're going to do everything we can to get him out. um, and it was kind of like a one of those things that like people see in real life too, with like the way that some men treat women as almost like objects in a way, and so it kind of hit, it probably hit a lot of people close to home with that kind of situation. um, and Frank later then did talk to Polly, and then to sorry for the train.
Hello, train.
That was a really loud train. Uh, Frank later did talk to Polly and the Devon, basically saying how it's a normal thing to do around his house. He's pitched the butts of his grandma and his mom, and it's considered like acceptable for them. Which, I mean, if it's acceptable between your family and they don't really have a problem with it, then I guess at that point you're excused to do it there. But when you're out here with other people,
Yeah,
you have to realize that not everyone's gonna have the same feelings towards the touching of butts with like that your family has. They're not gonna be as comfortable. And he did that because he felt like he was close with Devon, but he should have asked before even doing that. So,
or just not done it at all.
or just not done it at all. Yeah. I would go in the category of not doing it at all. But if he really had this urgency, I mean,
Yeah, this was the first time where I started like disliking Frank.
oh, absolutely, yeah, same here. Well, I in the past when I've watched people with 14, I was rooting for the side that was opposed to Frank. So I did really like Frank back then, but that was just because he was on the wrong side. This time we kind of I got to see how he kind of treats other people at times, and it was kind of like, oh, that's not really, you don't do that to people. But yeah, I mean, it kind of Devon like told him that she accepts his apology, but she said that she is still going to try to target him. That she'll nip this in the butt, no pun intended, but she will absolutely get him out still.
Yeah.
That's the plan. So they get to the veto competition, and the veto competition was what was the veto competition, Gocubs? What would you, or if you could explain it? It was the like they're
Oh yeah, okay.
yeah.
So they this is a Big Brother staple. They had basically like a sequence of things that you had to choose from. Like stuff would flash on a screen, and then you had to pick something based on that sequence, and then you pour it into something, and if it was right, you're good. Otherwise, it blows up.
Yeah, and it was that I would always think like what can I do if I was in that challenge, but I got distracted like from like other things that are happening around me that I was like, well, I would not do well with this challenge.
The thing that I liked about all of Wednesday's episode is that they kept like the first half of the episode with the editing they did. They made it seem like, oh, now that Bronte and Natalie are both competing, they have a chance to like take Bronte off the block and do really well. It's gonna be such a good thing, and they're gonna be best friends. And then they both get out in the first round.
Yeah. Should note that Natalie and who else was picked? It was Natalie that was picked to play in the veto, and someone
Pauly?
else. Pauly's a oh yeah, Pauly. Yeah. I was thinking that he was the HOH for some reason.
No.
Yeah, so Pauly and Natalie were both picked to play in that veto. So yeah, and Natalie and Bronte they got together, and that they're gonna work together to get Bronte off the block, and it didn't happen. Another thing that's worth noting, if we want to backcheck real quick before we say the winner of the veto, was that James via phone call called Natalie, or Natalie called him, and James ended up telling her that Frank won the roadkill and not to tell Bronte and Bridget. And so Natalie kind of realized at that point that Frank was kind of a snake and that she should not trust him moving forward. So that to me is gonna it's going to be fun down the line to see how that affects the game. But so you have in the veto competition, we saw that Natalie and Bronte got eliminated, and then the winner of the power veto was Bridget.
Yeah.
And so Bridget has the power now to take her best friend off the block. Now, unfortunately, there was some bad stuff that happened to Bridget. When she was celebrating, she landed on her foot, and then she sprained her ankle. So that was smart. Once again, Frank causing either emotional or physical harm to women in the house. But yeah, so Bridget ended up being it's just gonna probably have to be on crutches for a little while. But yeah, Bridget now has the power to do her do stuff with the veto and save Bronte. But we'll see what happens with that. Luckily, Bridget also won a Outback dinner for her team and a team of her choice, and she chose Big Sister, Paul, Devon, and Zakiya. So all 7 of them went out and had a delicious Outback dinner, which made me really jealous because I love Outback. And
I actually don't think I've ever been to an Outback.
it is delicious. It's great. There's sometimes that we've gone there and it's like weird and like weird stuff happens.
Yeah,
But I've enjoyed
it's
it.
Australia, man.
Yeah, yeah, I accept it. But no, yeah. So and then they all got blasted. Every single one of them got absolutely drunk off their mind. And one of the moments that they ended up, they completely left out some of the best parts of the whole thing. They on the show they didn't show some lap dances that were made. They had the girls and the men had a dance battle. That wasn't even close. The females kicked their asses. And there was also a Michelle Paul rap battle, or Michelle's rap name, Big Meech. So that I actually did not see the rap live, but I saw some of the other stuff live. I've heard the rap battle was pretty intense. So
Awesome.
I'm upset they didn't show that on the feeds, but that's okay. What they did show was Bridget snuggling up with Frank, who, and again, Bridget was drunk, very drunk, and Frank decides to reveal to her that he won the roadkill for this week.
And nominated her friend.
Right, and so Bridget's just like, she kind of realizes it, and she's just like, alright. And then he doesn't even stop there. He reveals that he won the roadkill week 1 and nominated Bridget. And guess what? Bridget doesn't care. She's just like, alright, and like she was like kidding around, like, I hate you, drunk, and just like slurring her words. But it was like, what, how? I would think even if you are intoxicated, that you would at least realize how bad that is.
This guy doesn't want to be on your team.
Right. So I don't even know. And he ended up convincing her not to use the power veto on Bronte, because otherwise Natalie would have ended up in Bronte's place anyway.
Yeah.
So that leads us to Thursday's episode. An episode that I felt was hopefully the turning point of the season, after a pretty boring okay start. So the initially Devon wanted to lead the charge to get Tiffany out of to lead the charge to keep Tiffany out in the house, after initially wanting to lead the charge to get her out. Devon felt like Tiffany could be used as a weapon to get Frank out of the game. So Devon starts doing the campaigning, goes to Michelle first. Michelle says that she agrees. Nicole's on board with it. And Zakiya seemed pretty on board with it. And Corey was on board with it. But I think Corey would just want to do whatever Nicole wants.
Right.
You know, the bread just listens to everyone else. So, and then without Devon, all those people I just named, plus Paulie and James, all gathered in the backyard and started debating. What do we do? Who do we think? Who is the biggest threat in the house right now? And Polly essentially sways everyone that Tiffany is the bigger threat and that we need to get her out now before she goes into Vanessa mode and completely dominates this game. So they all are convinced, and they're like, okay, fine, we'll stick with the get rid of Tiffany plan until a new event occurs, and Nicole and Frank have a conversation. And Frank starts saying that, hey, Mama Day can't be trusted. Devon can't be trusted, and that sometime soon we have to get her out. And Nicole says to Frank, "Oh yeah, we should get her out at some point." Then Nicole says to Frank, like, "Oh yeah, I think Michelle will be on board with this, so you have to ask her." And so then Frank goes to Michelle and starts pitching the idea of getting Devon out at some point. And Michelle's like, I mean, okay, I guess that sounds good. And then I forget watching the episode what exactly caused him to name drop, but he actually said, Nicole said that you'd be on board with this. And Michelle kind of, like, it sinks in, like, oh, wait, Nicole agreed to get Devon out of the house?
Yeah.
So Michelle goes to Devon and tells Devon. Then Nicole comes into the room, and it's Devon, Michelle, and Nicole. And Michelle, Devon try to call out Nicole on her potentially saying that, and Nicole plays it off like, oh no, I never said that. I never wanted to target you. And Nicole in the diary room was just like, oh no. Oh god. And then that causes Nicole and Michelle to kind of be like, you know what? We need to get him out. Let's keep Tiffany in here, and let's get Bronte out, because Bronte could be used potentially. So then they get Polly back in the room with Zakiya and Corey, and the five of them are all hanging out. And this is basically their core alliance at this point. It's the two couples plus Michelle, and they're like, look, this is. I feel like it would be much better to get Tiffany out later. Let's have her go after Frank, because we don't know if Bronte's going to do that. Let's get Bronte out, because Bronte has a better shot at winning competitions down the line and could be seen as a bigger threat. What do you think about this, Gocubs? Do you think that this was a good decision to get rid of Tiffany, not get rid of Tiffany, and keep Bronte if they decide to go this path?
I think that if their short-term goal was to get rid of Frank, then they made the right decision.
Absolutely. Yeah,
because Bronte could still be like with Bridget, and then Bridget is obviously for some fucking reason aligned with Frank.
Right. So yeah, I agree in a sense. I do think that I understand both sides of it. I understand that people are worried potentially of Tiffany becoming like her sister, but I think we need to realize that they are two completely different people. As similar as they are, we haven't seen Tiffany come out of the gate and be like a challenge threat yet. You know, we haven't seen as much strategy and manipulation as Vanessa was in Tiffany yet. It definitely could develop, but as of right now, I think they are two different players. Are they very similar personalities? Absolutely, but we don't know if they're going to play the same. So if you had to look at Tiffany, who is an ally, who has no one else in the house, while Bronte is aligned with the Spy Girls, and Bridget, who's aligned with Frank, it makes sense to me that Bronte would be the bigger target over Tiffany.
Enjoy my dog barking if you heard that.
Yeah, I hear it. So the live show comes around, and by the way, they were promoting that Frankie Grande would be interviewed on the show. Yeah, and he never showed up. So I guess they just cut him. They were like, you're not important enough.
Nice.
So they get to the live show, the live eviction, and they decide the best way of voting. They do end up. They didn't show this on the actual show, but they did end up telling James the next day that they were going to make this decision, and James wasn't too happy about it, but he was like, you know what, I'm just gonna go with the group, and I'll vote my way. And Devon was absolutely on board with it because she wanted to keep Tiffany, but she thought at first it was a lost cause. So what they decided to do is to throw Frank off. Was they decided to do a 5-4 vote, and that Nicole, Corey, Michelle, Zakia, and Day would all vote to keep Tiffany, and James, Paulie, and Frank and Natalie will all vote to get rid of Bronte, or get rid of Tiffany, rather. So the vote was already planned out. They felt like this was the best route going. Before the feeds turned it off yesterday, there was a lot more hesitation. And actually following the eviction, I don't usually like giving spoiler any live feed stuff that happened after the eviction, but Paulie did end up saying that 20 minutes prior to the eviction, they still were not sure whether or not Tiffany or Bronte were going, even though it seemed solidified that Bronte was going to be the one that goes. But I don't know what happened there. They'll probably show it on Sunday's show. But that was it was pretty interesting nonetheless. So by a vote of 5-4, they ended up pulling through with it, and Bronte was evicted. Thank God I don't have her picked as my winner. Bronte is outie, and she will join Victor, Jose, and Glenn as 4 of the 5 battle back participants have now been decided, with the next one to be determined next Thursday, and then Friday will be the battle back episode.
It sure will.
It will be interesting to see. And then we have the HOH competition, and it was based off of a bunch of pictures, fun pictures, of Glenn, Jose, and Victor on their trip around the world, which didn't really happen. It was all just Photoshop.
Yeah.
And they had to memorize the pictures, and then Julie Chen is going to ask them true or false questions on those pictures. So the competition goes on, and the goal for Paulie, Michelle, was to throw the competition. Frank obviously was going to be a try-hard after they blindsided him, and Bridget. Oh, by the way, backtracking a little bit, Tiffany's speech was amazing.
Oh, yeah, dude. That was so awesome.
Tiffany's speech, when before the actual vote began, Tiffany gave a speech essentially
calling... I can't believe we forgot about that.
Yeah, Tiffany called Frank a dictator and Bridget a Cabbage Patch Kid. She never actually named them specifically, but it was hilarious.
Yeah, it was awesome.
It was an absolute, just saying that dictatorships don't work, that the shit spewing out of his mouth smelled worse than the farts that he passes every day. And it was really just a... And then Bronte got up after it. It was just kind of like, I don't want to be mean, but it was good TV for sure.
It was awesome.
But it came down. So Frank was blindsided, so he was gonna try hard, but Paulie and Michelle were gonna try to throw it, and it came down to Paulie, Frank, and Nicole. And Paulie was trying to get Nicole to win this, and Paulie said that Paulie got the question right, while Frank and Nicole got the question wrong. And Paulie was the new head of household, and Frank was safe for yet another week.
This is 3 weeks in a row where Category 4 has been safe.
Yep. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. And just they can't, for some reason, they're just not able
I just can't stop winning.
Yeah, they Frank... I have this feeling that once the team split, which my prediction is going to be for this upcoming week, Frank is going to go on one of his competition streaks, and he's going to end up lasting to the final 7.
Cool.
I feel it. I feel it that he's going to end up just pulling that shit. So now Paulie's the head of household, and Tiffany and potentially Devon are in big trouble. Because I don't think anyone really wants to waste the HOH on Paul or Natalie.
No.
So we'll see what happens. Go Cubs! What is your predictions for this week?
All right. So my predictions. Paulie is going to nominate Paul and Tiffany. Paul is then going to win the roadkill and throw everyone for a loop and nominate James. And then Frank is going to win the power of veto and keep the nominations the same. And Tiffany's going to go home.
Yeah,
And
that's
then
right.
Zakia will win the next HOH.
Yes, that is true. And as
Anyone but Category 4,
right,
please win the next HOH.
I think that Paulie will nominate Tiffany and Day. The roadkill winner is going to be Nicole, and she's going to nominate Natalie. James will win the veto and use the veto on Devon. Paul will get put up her in her place, and Tiffany will go home as well. So our sights are set on Tiffany.
And then HOH.
Oh, the HOH. Who did I forgot what I said. Frank. Yeah.
I would like to point out that Chris's last 3 evicted predictions have been Tiffany.
Yeah. Well, because
and my
she's
last
a prime
2
target.
still.
Yeah. What were the points from last week?
So the points for last week, Chris, you're not doing very well.
I'm not. I've got zip.
Chris has gotten 0 points. I predicted that Tiffany would be nominated, Frank would win the roadkill, and Bridget would win the power of veto. So I got 3 points. So I'm now sitting at 4.
4-0 going into.
Feeling good.
Yeah, this has only been 3 weeks in. We're only at week 4.
Yeah.
So we got a lot of Big Brother left and a lot of craziness left. Live feeds. What do I want to talk about in terms of live feeds? I don't think there's really anything major because they ended up showing a lot of it on the show. I don't think that anything was really missed other than the fact that it's basically the couples teamed up together with Michelle. Frank is basically paired up with Bridget and only Bridget at this point. Devon and James kind of have their own bond together, and obviously the two of them are also still trying to be cool with the couples, but Devon's starting to look more and more like a target, just for her being like moving around and running around and all that.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. I'm almost certain, and Natalie is with James, and Paul is pretty much a free agent. He's gonna do whatever he has to do to keep on going. Paul's our floater for the season.
Yep. I have one more question.
Yes.
Who's the Shadow the Hedgehog of the season?
The Shadow the Hedgehog of the season. I don't know.
My vote's for Paul.
The guy, I would say I would say Paul. Paul's accurate. Yeah. Actually, you know what? I absolutely think that he'd be the Shadow the Hedgehog. That has to be a counter for us. How many Shadow the Hedgehog contestants do we have on these shows? Another thing to note, and this is something that I actually talked about a few weeks ago. Devon, the reason why she's in big trouble, and that things might, I don't know if we'll end up coming out or not, but Devon was what caused all this rift in the first place, was what caused all these turns. Devon went to Frank and told him a kind of a lie that Tiffany was going after Frank, and then Frank started really going after Tiffany, and then Devon took that and went to Tiffany and said that Frank was going after her, and then that's what started everything, basically. So they have yet to show that on the show. I don't know why they just keep on making her seem kind of like this hero. She is a villain in this show. And I'm not saying it's wrong for anyone to not root for her or anything like that.
Right.
I'm just pointing out the way that they portrayed her on the show compared to actually what's happening on the live feeds. So keep that in mind going into this week if Devon ends up being the target. I don't know for sure if she's going to. I truly do not know right now.
Who knows?
So we'll see what happens. I'm very excited for this week because even though it might seem kind of similar to having maybe Frank in charge again, we someone else could end up going home that will blow everyone's minds. Who knows? We'll see. Or Tiffany will finally go home, and no more flips. So we'll see what happens.
Figured the fuck out.
Yeah. So thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed the Big Brother podcast, and I'll see you guys.
Check out my channel. Chris is gonna be on it soon.
Oh yes, I will.
Doing some shit.
I'll be doing some crazy shit. Such as Portal 2 meme crafts and my sims.
He's gonna be wearing a hat.
I don't believe I'm gonna be wearing a hat, but you know,
dude. Let them have the illusion.
Okay, I'll wear a hat. Just keep that image in your head. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. And do you have a recommendation, or is that just your channel?
Yeah, sure, just my channel. That's a movie.
Gocubs 711 on YouTube. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.